Hi guys, I'm Beth and welcome to Fix Your Family. We're on module 3 today of our family recovery program and I'm here with Anthony. Do you want to say hi really quick?
Hello.
There he is back there helping to support me. We're really happy that you found your way to module 3. We're talking today about codependency. And when I wrote the curriculum, I actually wrote, out of the 12 modules, I wrote 3 of them having to do with codependency. So you can tell that the work that I've done with families over all these years, if there's one thing that I have found that families really have concern about and are asking questions about, it's definitely codependency. So this module is going to answer the question of what is codependency. We're going to talk a little bit about the definition and very quickly go through some things that you can read through when you go to the worksheet. You guys, as you know, you can always go to our website and click on services, click on modules, and find your way to our codependency module. This module here will offer you a couple of things. There's also a video on here that I linked that if you just want to ask yourself, am I actually a codependent? Am I actually someone who could identify with these characteristics? There's a test right here on this worksheet that you can click on and ask yourself these questions. And then once we get to the other modules on codependency, we'll definitely take a much deeper dive so that we can learn the skill sets of how to remedy this and also be able to kind of be a little more in tune with some of the things that we can be looking for in our qualifier or our partner or a kid who's struggling through addiction and mental health, so that we can be more attuned to just having the skill sets to catch things ahead of time so that we really get a recognition of the patterns. Maybe the addict is acting a certain way and we get caught and it brings out these codependent behaviors. If we learn about some of the things that typically an addict or someone with mental health, the things that they're struggling with, the things that they're bringing to our attention, we can get a better footing to recognize these things so that we can avoid the bait and the trap of these behaviors. So we'll just start from the beginning at the top of your worksheet. There's many definitions of codependency. So this is one that I liked and one that I've been teaching, so we'll just read it together. Codependency involves an excessive emotional or psychological reliance on a partner, typically one who requires support due to an illness or addiction. So just so you know, originally this term was actually deemed to only coincide with addiction or mental health. It's since then kind of morphed into some other areas where it doesn't necessarily have to be linked specifically to addiction or mental health. So, a lot of families are finding these traits maybe not in addiction, but for the sake of this conversation, we're obviously recognizing that this term came about from the family system of addiction. When there's an addict in the family or someone with chronic untreated mental health, there seems to be this tendency with the family. We call it the family disease. There tends to be someone in the family who struggles with substance-related disorder, and therefore there's one person in the center of this household, and the whole family system in some way is kind of orchestrating around it. And these codependent behaviors don't necessarily come out of nowhere quickly. They're morphed over time. It's a slow process. It's a slow process of a maladaptive pattern that the codependent, the one who loves the addict, do you hear that? I like to say that sometimes. I like to say sometimes that maybe codependents are the ones that love so much. I really like to take the judgment off of codependency, if that's okay with you. Sometimes even the term can be a negative term, and we hear that, oh, you're acting codependent, you need to stop being codependent. And I'd like to let you know, having encountered so many families, that the people that I have encountered, the family systems that are loving deeply like this and standing next to their loved ones, so loyal and so dedicated, there's actually, and if this is you sitting here listening to this, I really want to recognize that there's a beautiful intent here. There's probably tremendous love and adoration and a tremendous amount of loyalty. Maybe there's a tremendous amount of unconditional love that you're offering to your loved one. And at the same time, sometimes codependency in its true fashion and its true nature can really bring about over time. And that's an important concept. Like I said, it's not something that just happens overnight. Nobody becomes a codependent overnight. But through the course of time in the relationship with chronic addiction and chronic mental health, what happens in the codependent, the one who loves so beautifully and so much, is there tends to be this unique sacrificial love that comes in, and it crosses over from being like what I would call a holy love and an anointed love. It crosses over into a deprivation. It crosses over into a martyrdom, and it starts to affect the mind and the body and the spirit. And what happens with the codependent is that the one who loves the addict over time tends to find their self in some sense of deterioration. Maybe they start to find themselves thinking more about the addict than themselves, or more about the addict than their children, or more about the addict than their spirituality. And we're going to learn in the other modules on codependency how this is more than just a feeling. Codependency is more than just an overwhelming feeling of wanting to care for someone. That codependency actually goes deep into the neurology of the brain. And maybe you didn't know that. As you've learned in our module 1 when we talked about the brain of the addict, well, the brain of the addict and their behavior then ends up really affecting their loved ones. And the maladapted brain of the addict and their behaviors then at times can create a very maladapted mind in their loved ones. And that's why you might have been feeling the way that you've been feeling for so long, because you've been loving and being loyal and standing next to and being a full offering. And maybe it's gotten to the point now to where as you've been a full offering to another person, like I said, with beautiful intent, maybe you've neglected some things about yourself. And we're really wanting, at the Family Recovery Foundation, it's the whole reason why this foundation exists for this moment, is to recognize that the best thing you can do, if you're here to learn how to love your addict well, and those who are suffering with mental health, if you're learning how to love like that and do it in a way that's productive, we're asking that you would put the oxygen mask on yourself. And, it's kind of like when the plane's going down, how they say, mom and dad, caregiver, put the oxygen mask on yourself. The adult puts the oxygen mask on themselves. Why? So that they can help other people. We've mentioned this in some of the other curriculums. And all the more reason when we're talking about the concepts of codependency. So this is not easy. Bottom line, not easy. And a lot of times deep codependency becomes almost somewhat addictive in nature, because the codependent, dealing with chronic relapse, dealing with the deep uncertainty. Thank you, that's why he's here, to help me. Walking through the deep uncertainty of the life living with an addict. It takes a definite toll, and it could be why you've been feeling the way you've been feeling. Maybe you've been losing sleep. Maybe you're not tasting your food anymore. Maybe you're driving and you don't exactly know how you got to your destination. These are all things that happen when the mind, the maladapted mind, having gone through maybe even PTSD and anxiety disorders, depression, those kinds of things fuel the codependency and those codependent traits. So we're here for that. Codependency at times can be so complex in people's lives that they do need specific help. Meaning, as I was thinking about this curriculum before we were going to film today, I was thinking about how we can go through the worksheets with you. We can explain what it is. We can give you the skill sets. And I want to let you know from my heart, this is deeper than that. If you've been in a codependent relationship, if you've loved an addict, or you've had a kid who struggled with addiction or mental health for a long time, most people that I've encountered who have been here for a hot minute, they need extra help, meaning they need a therapist, or they need to be on Fix Your Family. The codependent education, we go through it on our evening Fix Your Family group. You can go on our website and get all that information. We do offer a free online group where we go through all these curriculums. That's me. I have the honor of being with you one evening a week. So check the website and go register for this free group. Codependent conversations come up in every single night we do Fix Your Family. So I want to let you know that as much as we're going through this content today, some of these patterns of behavior that we find ourselves in really could use a therapist or sitting in Fix Your Family every week, every single week, going to Al-Anon meetings. Because like I said, we can talk about it, but to really find your way to what I would call your personal recovery, as much as we want our addict and our loved one to be, and we're praying miracles over their lives so that they can walk out their recovery, this is our recovery. The foundation is our recovery. Al-Anon's our recovery. We're learning how to pause the enabling processes that we've been in. We're learning how to find, like I always say, you guys, we're learning how to find the life God intended for us to be living. And codependency runs deep. It can be generational, just to let you know. You might have grown up in a home where you watched mom or dad being extremely codependent. So I don't necessarily love labels. If any of you have worked with me for any time, I'm not a big labeler in terms of diagnostic criteria, but I use the word codependency because it's of ease in teaching. But for years now, I've been saying codependents are the ones that love. So I really want you to hear that. Codependents are the ones that love. They love all the way to the end. And we'd like to help you learn how to love effectively and love appropriately. Love like from Christ consciousness, love from your spirit. And just as Christ on the planet, when he was here and had his ministry, just as much as he loved unconditionally and sacrificed himself, he also had limits and boundaries. He also walked away when he felt called to walk away. So we really want this to be a spiritual process for you of learning how to operate in a way that is in your higher self, loving all the way to the end, and also being able to have boundaries and free ourselves from these patterns of behavior that have made us maybe sick and unwell mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, like I said. Make sense, Anthony? Perfect. Got it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So like I said, it's now codependency not only applies to families who struggle through addiction, but it's a broad stroke now. We're using it when we're dealing with other issues in mental health and family systems. So it's obviously, taking hold, and we're all learning how to manage it with better skill sets. There's some key characteristics of codependency. We'll read through them a little bit. Difficulty making decisions without input from others. I'd like you to think of living autonomously, meaning having your own sense of critical thinking instead of always having this sense that if I make a decision on my own, what if I get in trouble, or what if she doesn't like it, or I need to get confirmation from everybody to make sure that I'm on the right track. Living in a healthy, autonomous, holy, grounded way, we have times where we make decisions, and we're not afraid to make the wrong decision. We have freedom to fail. Freedom to make the wrong decision in my own life. Other people are going to have mercy on me as well. If you're living in a relationship where you don't have freedom to fail or freedom to make your own decisions, that could be a sign that you're in a codependent relationship. Struggles with setting and maintaining personal boundaries. One thing I've noticed working in recovery is, especially when I was working with early staff that I'd hire that would come in and they're fairly new to the field. They'd come to me and they'd say, I told the wife to just put her boundaries down. And it would be so endearing to me because I would think, well, if the wife knew how to do that, she would do that. So it's not as easy necessarily as just putting your boundaries down. I'm sure you have boundaries in your mind of things that are important to you. And I'm sure if you knew how to lay your boundaries down, you would. A lot of times there's a deeper undertow of maybe fear, or a deeper undertow of anxiety, or something underneath that is disabling us in some way from being able to move forward. And we find ourselves accommodating when we lack boundaries and we're in these codependent behaviors. And that's why sometimes having a specialized therapist or sitting in on the Fix Your Family groups, we can help uncover the underlying reasons why we may lack the ability to lay our boundaries down. Sometimes it can even come down to our own value systems. We might have belief systems. I'd like you to really hear this part. Sometimes we have belief systems that we may not deserve that type of life. We have a desire inside in our heart. We have a desire. I think desires are holy and they're from God. And we've got these desires that are burning in us, but we don't exactly maybe have the belief system that we are entitled to them. So that's why sitting with a therapist and really slowly going through your domestication, maybe looking at what those belief systems are. You can do this on your own too. You can take a hot minute, pause the video, and write down, what are my beliefs? What are my desires? And you can kind of see if my beliefs coincide with my desires. You might see some discrepancies. Maybe you have a belief system that relationships are hard, or a belief system of I'll never be able to feel the love that I desire. You might find these vows, I'm never really going to feel safe on the planet, those types of things. Yet you've got a desire for safety and a desire for reciprocity in your love relationship. Really take a minute and write those down on both sides. Get quiet, take a breath. What are those desires in my heart? Write them down. And then think, what are my value systems? What do I really believe about the world? What do I believe about marriage, about partnership? And see if those two things go together. And if they don't, we've got a lot of beautiful opportunity here to change the belief systems, because once those belief systems are shifted, that's where we start. A lot of times once the belief has become a reality, then we can find the skill set. Because once there's a belief system, then it's so much easier to move forward with your boundary. Really think about that for a minute, okay? So struggling with setting and maintaining boundaries, if you're constantly telling yourself, I should have set a boundary, I should have set a boundary, yet there's fear there or panic, that could be a concern of codependency. Here's another one, constant need for approval or recognition. Codependent type people struggle with an inner self-efficacy, like an inner confidence. There's a constant kind of like pitter-patter, a constant struggle, a constant clicking inside of needing to make sure that everything's okay. If you feel a sense of lack of confidence where you're wondering, am I a good parent? Am I a good mom? Am I a good dad? Am I a good partner? I should be doing things differently. If you're constantly questioning yourself and you don't feel this sense of grounded authority in your life, you might be struggling with codependency, where you need to be constantly getting affirmation. Maybe you're always asking your kids. And again, there's no judgment in this. We're really just learning and talking. So if I say some things that might be familiar to you in things that you're struggling with, there's no judgment here. That's why the foundation is here, to first find awareness and recognize, and then uncover it. So I always say judgment's not invited. So if any of these pertain to you, but maybe you're asking your kids all the time, do you think I'm a good mom? Or maybe you're asking your partner all the time, do you love me? Are you sure you do? Tell me why. Because you've got this lacking feeling inside of need. Maybe you're asking your boss, I need to know that I'm doing a good job constantly, and it's this chronic, unending need for everyone to continue to tell you you're good, you're okay, you're worthy, you're valuable. Our hope is that we would get to a place to where, as beautiful as those are, those words of affirmation, and they can feel connecting, we're really looking to find a way to live our life to where we actually have that steady within us. That I call it the observer self or the parent self, that we can create a part of ourselves that is deeming our own self worthy. Do you hear that? Did you know that the desires of your heart, you can actually tell yourself the things that you need? You can put your hand on your heart and tell yourself you're doing amazing. You're working so hard. You've come so far. You're healing. You're doing all that you can in your recovery. You're working so hard as a parent. You're doing such a good job at your work. You can start to tell yourself those things and start to manifest the truth. You know, your words are very, very powerful. And just to let you know, sometimes I do that to myself, like out loud in the car. Sometimes if I have a negative feeling come in, I'll put my hand on my heart. I always tell people, if you see me with my hand on my heart, I'm doing some work. But you can put your hand on your heart, say it out loud. You're doing such an amazing job and you've come so far. And there's actually a lot of science, just to let you know, that proves that when we say those things to ourselves, that we have a subconscious part of ourselves that actually takes that in as gold. So as much as it's beautiful and it's like the icing on the cake when we have people in our lives that are affirming us, my hope would be that you would be your own study. You are a spiritual being if you're open to that concept. And when we get into that higher self, that Christ consciousness, we can calmly find our way behind our mind and tap into God's authority over us and God's heart for us and receive from Him all those beautiful words. And that's a beautiful way to live. A beautiful, collaborative, spiritual way to live is when we're tapping into God's heart for us. You can grab scripture out of the Bible, grab things from different spiritual teachers, grab things from whatever is meaningful to you spiritually and read them and declare them to be true for you. This is how we heal from the inside. This is how we get grounded and we get steady, not constantly grabbing from other people the things that we truly, truly need. Okay? So that's how we start to build our own self-esteem and our own self-worth. And then over time, it takes time, just to let you know, these things take time. But if we continue to self-validate our needs and our feelings, I'm confident, I'm super confident that what'll happen is over time, you're going to need it less from other people. And then you're going to have an energy about you that's just calm, confident, powerful, and that's going to change everything too. So constant need for approval and recognition, tendency to neglect personal needs for others' sake. This is a huge one. On Fix Your Family, there are so many times where I hear from our participants. They'll say, I haven't slept. My loved one relapsed and I've been up for 3 days. My loved one was struggling with his or her anxiety, and I haven't had one moment to get to my exercise plan. My loved one was really angry the last 4 days, so I missed out on I'm sorry I couldn't attend our Fix Your Family because he was. I couldn't because he. I couldn't because she. Are you hearing that? I couldn't because they. Codependence will actually, no judgment, codependents will actually enjoy, at times, self-sacrificing to be of help and to be of service. And while that can be holy in its nature, when it goes too far, when it's self-sacrificing to the point of losing weight, finding your way to illness, not sleeping, not tasting your food, losing time at work, that's when we start to recognize that these signs and symptoms have gone too far and it's now causing a problem in our own lives. So if any of those are really true for you, I hope you stick around for the next few modules so that we can really, really give you some skill sets to help. The historical context and origination of the term. I think it's important to recognize, like I was saying, the part of the curriculum here is to just really recognize that as much as you may, in any of the examples that I gave you, as much as you may be struggling with those, that part of the curriculum is there to just remind you that there's no judgment in the term, that it comes from, working with families who struggle through addiction. But like I said, it's really broadened to become a term that we use with a lot of families. So we don't want to carry that term with any judgment, and we want to simply recognize it. Awareness is always the hardest thing. So once we start to recognize it, we've got all of the skill sets then that we can work on after that. So let's go through really quickly, we're almost there, a few strategies. And like I said, a lot of these strategies take time to implement, but we can at least acknowledge them today and see if any of these we can start practicing within this week. So first of all, acknowledgement. It's always the hardest step, right? In our recovery process, our first step is recognizing that this whole thing's become unmanageable. I can't manage my partner. It's not my job to manage him. I can't control it. I can't cure it. And I recognize that I need to only focus on things that I can manage and I control in my own life. So we come to recognize that we might have some of these patterns. And if anything that I shared with you rings true, then hopefully some of these skill sets will help. And we want to build self-esteem and self-worth. We want to start recognizing that maybe we are here on this planet because God brought us here and we have tremendous value. We want to stop perseverating. Perseverating means a chronic thinking pattern. We want to recognize that we may be perseverating and thinking constantly about our loved one. What are they doing? What are they thinking? Are they okay? Is this life going to work out for me? Can't believe I found myself in this relationship. Is she going to make the right decision? Is she going to make it to the soccer game on time? Was she where she said she was? All of those chronic thinking patterns. We want to learn how to pause those and come back to self. A lot of people at times think that when we start recognizing our own self-worth and our own self-esteem, that could be perceived as selfish. I'd like to really give you permission to experiment with it. I really would. I'd like to give you permission to start to recognize your thought process and your behaviors and how much output is happening regarding your partner or your kid or your loved one. And as you start to do that, if we could start to take just a little bit of it, just slow and steady start, if we could take a little bit of it and go inward with it, I'd like to know, and you can definitely contact me and let me know if this experiment works. But once we start pouring all of our energy outward to other people, especially to those who struggle with addiction, and we take a beat and take a pause and we pour some of that back into ourselves, I'd like to know how you feel. I'd like to know if you decide to maybe pause the argument, go on a walk, hit your yoga class, and maybe call a girlfriend or call a friend and chat them up. I'd like to know how much better you feel than maybe encouraging the argument for 24 hours, losing your sleep and having to call in sick for work. I give you that drastic example to let you know that in this experiment of learning how to go inward and provide yourself with the value that I feel you deserve, I'm wondering if the outcome will be tenfold for you. I'm wondering if this experiment will give you better days. I'm wondering if you'll have more joy to offer your children. I'm wondering if you'll have more to offer at work, if your creativity levels will increase. It's really an opportunity for you to start really slow. Simply start to become aware. How much are you thinking about your partner? How much are you doing for your partner? How much are you thinking about yourself? And how much are you doing for yourself? And if you practice this experiment and maybe do an exchange, what if I didn't ask my partner how many meetings he went to? What if I didn't ask my partner how his cravings are today? And what if I checked in with self? And what if I asked myself, how many meetings have I gone to this week? You hear the difference? What if I self-explored and said, how many meetings have I gone to this week? And what if I checked in with myself and said, what am I craving? What am I craving? Am I craving affection? Am I craving a bath? Am I craving a walk? Am I craving my favorite food? Am I craving to watch my favorite movie with my family? And we start to recognize that I can literally, the neuroplasty unhooks in the thinking patterns. Take a breath. Neuroplasty unhooks. And anytime I have a question for my qualifier, what if I asked myself that question? This could be a really good experiment. Just play around with it, see how you do with it, and see if you can find your way back to self. And I want to know what the outcome is of that. Let me know for sure. Developing healthy relationships. Can you think through your people? Do you have people in your life that after you spend time with them, you feel happy and you feel of joy? Spend more time with them. Do you have people that you spend time with and you just feel run down and there's gossip and critical conversations? Do you have friends that are constantly complaining about their partners? Really start to do a beautiful self-evaluation and identify, where are my best relationships? Where are the ones that are leveling me up? Where are the ones that are inspiring me? Where are the ones that are pulling me down? And just do a maybe just do a little assessment and maybe reduce the times. I'm not saying cut off, that you'll never hear that from me. But we can take a look and maybe reduce the time on the unhealthy ones and see how that feels. And maybe enhance the times, text someone, put more effort into those relationships that are fueling you. We talked about seeking professional help, support groups, Al-Anon. The Family Recovery Foundation is all about Al-Anon, so consider attending those groups. They're online. And practice saying no. That's not easy. Easier said than done, right? But just maybe practice here and there. If you get to our boundaries curriculum, let me say that different. When you get to our boundaries curriculum, when you get to that, there's a lot of content in there on how to have conversations with a firm no that are connecting. So definitely get to those modules and learn how to have conversations that actually draw people close. We can say no and have it be deeply connecting. And it sounds something along the lines of like, I so wish I could, but I'm not going to be able to do that. And sometimes you give a reason, sometimes you don't. It doesn't have to be like, you're stake in the ground, no, you're yelling, you're screaming. It could really be very tender. You can have, an open body language, your tone can be calm, and you can say, I so wish I could, but at this time I'm not going to be able to do that, but I'll definitely let you know when I'm ready for that. And that way we've at least tried our best to keep the relationship open. Practice setting priorities. You're a priority. I feel that. I feel you're an asset and you're a priority. And I want you to spend time thinking about that. What do you love? What do you love to do? What do you love to eat? Where do you love to go? What brings you joy? And bringing those things into your life. A lot of times when we're in relationships and they're untreated, mental health, untreated addiction, we lose. I'm going to be bold and say we can end up losing our life. We lose our essence of self. Maybe you can think back before this relationship when you enjoyed the simple things. You enjoyed laying out at the beach, or you enjoyed driving through and getting coffee. And have you lost that? Pick one. Pick one and do it tomorrow and see how that feels. And then the next day, do it again and do it again and do it again. Find your priorities. Take a minute. And this is where codependency gets so thick, because our minds have become so addicted to the addict that we even find it hard to recognize who we once were. So that's why things like yoga and exercise and walking, working the body, breath work, sauna, fasting, those kinds of things. Talk to your practitioner about all of that. That's why those practices help you quiet the mind, so that then you can take a beat and really think about, what are my priorities? What are my priorities? Self-care practices we talked about, and then lastly, mindfulness and meditation practices. You can start really slow with mindfulness and meditation. You can walk 15 minutes, not for exercise, just walk. Walk slow, really slow. Something happens at about the 12 to 15 minute mark. The neurology of the brain starts to shift, and your shoulders will go down, and you'll feel a sense of connectedness to self. You got to walk and walk and walk. Journal. You can sit on the floor, breathe in, breathe out. Set a timer for 2 minutes. I teach a 120-second meditation, so just sit quietly, put some beautiful music on. You can follow me on Spotify. There's playlists there for you. And just breathe. Follow the inhale of your nose and breathe out your mouth. If you want an excessive and renowned breath work, you can breathe in and out rapidly. 3 times 10. Breathe in and out times 10. Take a break. Do it again and do it again. And your mind will get quiet. I promise you. Whenever I'm highly, highly activated, I'll go into that level of breath work. And the sauna always works for me too. So if you have a gym, go sit in the sauna, and you'll leave the sauna on dopamine. And that's a really good time too to start to look at those priorities. So I'd like you to consider going to module 2 and 3 so that we can do a little bit of a deeper dive on codependency. Definitely consider watching the video that's on the module. Take the test and see if you identify in any of those ways. We're really happy that we have the opportunity to be with you and to work with you. You can find us on Instagram and on Facebook and connect with me personally. I would just love that. And if you have specific questions about skill sets or awareness of codependency, I'd really love to help you. Appreciate your time, guys. I'll see you next module. Bye.